Hello everyone and welcome to the Royal Chess YouTube channel. My name is Travnicek and this is my first video. I am a 17-year-old player from the Czech Republic. My international classical rating is about almost 2000, but I'm actually more of a rapid specialist because my national rapid rating is nearly 2200. My biggest success is finishing 4th at the 2017 Czech Rapid Championship under 14 years, and concerning my chess playing style, I'm a strictly positional player and I tend to calculate tactics only when I have to do that. In this video, I would like to show you my penultimate classical game that I played before the interruption of the chess leagues. I think that analyzing your own games is something that we should not underestimate even during this break from all of the live tournaments. The reason is that it's really useful to find out what mistakes do we make, because now we have enough time to learn from them and to try to improve in general. Okay, so let's look at the game. It's the game Senkyr Travnicek from one of the Czech leagues. At the time of the game, my opponent's rating was 150 points higher than mine, but fortunately I was in a good mood and I also felt confident. That's quite important for me. Well, so I played with the black pieces and the game went knight f3, knight f6, g3 and g6. On the day before the game, I was preparing for several possible opponents. My preparation for each of them was a bit different. My initial plan against Mr. Senkyr was to play the Slav, but during the game I told myself that I actually felt like playing the Grünfeld, which I had coincidentally also prepared against someone else. I have to mention that a good psychological factor for me was that last time when I played this setup, I nearly defeated an international master in a rapid game with it. The game continued bishop g2, bishop g7, both sides castled, and now d3. I was perfectly happy to see this move. My aforementioned rapid game Senkyr Travnicek from September 2019 continued d4, d5, c4, c6, knight bd2, bishop f5, b3, a5 with a roughly equal position. That game eventually finished in a draw. After the move d3, I played d5 and now c3. It was possible to play this move any time later. The main continuation in this position is knight bd2, and now, for example, c5, e4, knight c6, rook e1, e5, e takes d5, knight takes d5, and c3, where we would basically have the King's Indian defense, but with reversed colors. In the game after c3, I decided to build up my favorite double fianchetto. b6, queen c2, bishop b7, a4, and I played a6. I prophylactically prevent a further advance of the a-pawn, because after a5 I can always play b5. But of course it was also possible to play other moves, like for example knight bd7. After a6, the game continued, knight bd2, knight bd7, e4 and e5. During a more thorough analysis, I found out that d takes e4 also deserved attention, but I didn't want to play this move too early. The game could continue, for example, d takes e4, knight c5, e5, knight f2 e4, rook d1, or even knight b3, which is also a reasonable possibility, knight takes b3, queen takes b3, knight c5, and the position is about equal. And after rook d1 instead of knight b3, knight takes d2, rook takes d2. I have to mention that bishop takes d2 doesn't work in view of bishop e4, queen c1, knight b3, and white queen is now trapped, so black is winning. And after rook takes d2, queen c8, black's position is completely okay, because he does not have any weaknesses. In the game after e5, my opponent played knight h4. And now I would like to ask you, what do you think about this move? And the answer is that it's an inaccuracy. White tries to prepare the advance of the f-pawn, but this plan is better in positions where black's d-pawn is on d4. In this position, white's plan is not so effective. The typical continuation, e takes d5, seems better. After knight takes d5, rook e1 with a normal position. In the game after knight h4, I played d takes c4. After the game, I wasn't completely sure if I couldn't play anything better here, but I would say that playing this move was a good decision. A more ambitious move would be, for instance, rook e8, where white can't play f4 due to e takes f4, g takes f4, knight g4, and black would be winning. I even saw this during the game. But instead of f4, white can play b4 or e takes d5, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to play those positions. However, probably the best move here is c5, and black has the advantage. After d takes e4, the game went knight takes e4 and knight takes e4. I was also thinking about knight d5, but I simply liked knight takes e4 more. Now let's think for a moment. How would you take on e4? My opponent played d takes e4, but bishop takes e4 looks better. After bishop takes e4, d takes e4, white got rid of the passive bishop on g2, and I have a passive bishop on g7. Because of this fact, I would evaluate this position as equal. I should mention that after bishop takes e4, knight c5 is an interesting possibility, and I was also aware of it during the game. After bishop takes b7, knight takes b7, rook d1, queen d5, black has a slight advantage. In the game after d takes c4, I played queen e7, and we can see that white didn't get any advantage from the opening. In fact, he's the one that has to fight for equality. Instead of queen e7, another good possibility was knight c5, now let's say rook d1, queen e7, b4, knight d6, and I wasn't sure about the evaluation of this position, because I didn't know if the fact that white played b4 was favorable for him or not. However, black should be a bit better here. After queen e7, the game continued b3, rook f2 d8, bishop a3, and queen e8. Well, what plan would you choose with white here? My opponent played rook a2 e1, and I don't like this white's plan, because I think that black can create more than sufficient counterplay on the d-file and on the queen side in general. A more logical continuation appears to be rook a d1, bishop f8, bishop c1, knight c5, where black has a slight advantage. But the most precise way is to play rook f2 d1, and after bishop f8, bishop takes f8, queen takes f8, bishop f1, and black has only a very small advantage. By the way, almost everything that I'm showing you comes from my own analysis after the game. I used the engine only minimally. After rook a e1, I played bishop f8, and now bishop c1. After bishop takes f8, queen takes f8, the game could continue f4, e takes f4, g takes f4, b5 with black's advantage. After bishop c1, I would like to ask you, how do you continue in this position? In the game, I played a5. I want to conquer the d3 square, but also possible was knight c5 with a really good black's position. My opponent played f4. I think that white should rather have admitted his mistake and he should have played something like rook d1. Now I played bishop a6. Knight c5 was maybe a bit better, because black has a lot of possibilities in the next few moves. After bishop a6, white played c4. This looked too weakening to me, but actually white should play it. During the game I calculated rook f3 more, but in that case I would play e takes f4. Knight c5 is also promising for black. And after e takes f4, white has two options. Let's start from the better one. Bishop takes f4, knight e5, bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, and for example, bishop f1, queen c5 check, king h1, bishop b7, bishop c4, rook d7 with black's advantage. The worst option after e takes f4 is g takes f4, now knight c5, c4, knight d6, and it's clear that something went wrong in white's position. In our game after c4, I played knight c5. Another option was bishop b4, but after rook e2, knight c5, the bishop on b4 looked a bit stuck to me. After knight c5, my opponent played f5. Already during the game, I suspected that this shouldn't be the way to go for white. The game continued, knight d3 and rook e2. Now comes quite an important question. Should I take the bishop on c1 or not? I played bishop c5 check. However, knight takes c1 should be better. And after rook takes c1, only now bishop c5 check, king h1, rook d6 with black's advantage. In the game after bishop c5 check, king h1 happened. But white could play a strong move, bishop e3, where I wanted to play g5. After bishop takes e3, rook takes e3, knight b4, queen e2, suddenly some of black's advantage is gone. And after g5 that I wanted to play in the game, knight f3, f6, but after knight e1, the white knight has a potential route to d5 and the position is not so clear. And what about the position after king h1? Would you take on c1 or not? I played knight b4. I didn't want to take on c1 because I thought that my knight was better than white's bishop. But knight takes c1 was again a bit better. After queen takes c1, rook d3, black has a stable advantage. Our game after knight b4 continued, queen b1 and now rook d3. In this case, the d3 square for the rook isn't the ideal one. A better option was rook d6. Now bishop g5 is dubious because of f6. And after f takes g6, I have to play h takes g6, because quite a big mistake would be f takes g6, bishop h6, and suddenly white has the advantage. And after h takes g6, bishop g5, queen d7, my plan would be to play f6 to be able to play rook d8. In our game after rook d3, bishop g5 happened, bishop e7, and now bishop takes e7. This decision doesn't look right to me from the positional point of view, but I have to say that the position was already unpleasant for white. White had a good possibility of playing the intermediate move f takes g6, where now it's better to prevent the pressure along the f-file and to take f takes g6. But after the strong move queen c1, which was pointed out by the engine, I shouldn't play the greedy move rook takes b3. By the way, please note that better is bishop b7, because after rook takes b3, white can play knight f5, and white's attack is assuming quite alarming proportions. For instance, g takes f5, e takes f5, knight d3, bishop d5 check, king h8, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, f6, queen f8, queen c2, and black would be really happy to achieve a draw in this position, which won't be easy yet. In the game after bishop takes e7, of course I continued queen takes f7, and now f6. I thought that the move f6 would be more favorable for black, because white pieces now don't have any way to attack the black king, and the reason is that there aren't any open files. Actually, from now on, white will be tied to passive defense, and in fact, this f6 move is most probably the losing mistake. Instead of f6, f takes g6 was clearly better, and white still has at least some chances, although his position is still unpleasant. After f6, I went queen d6. In the game, I also considered queen f8. After queen d6, the game continued knight f3, rook d8. Now comes a maneuvering phase of the game. Queen b2, knight c6, knight d1, rook d1, queen c3, knight d4, rook b2, bishop b7, queen e3, knight e6, bishop f3, rook d2, and now c5. To be honest, I didn't understand this move at all. But it's obvious that after rook takes d2, queen takes d2, queen takes d2, rook takes d2, white pawns would be too weak. After c5, I played knight takes c5, and I think there is no need to commentate on the following development of the game, because black is just undoubtedly winning. I just kept improving my position. I managed to capture the f6 pawn, and in the end I also trapped white's queen. I think that this game was quite abundant in strategy as well as in tactics. I would say that I performed relatively well on both counts. Nevertheless, I have to emphasize the unexploited opportunities, namely the exchange knight takes c1, where I overrated the strength of my knight and I underrated the strength of the white bishop. In addition, I undervalued the consequences of the move bishop g5. At those moments, I was thinking too much about strategy and I didn't care about concrete calculation very much. Anyway, I would say that this is a fairly instructive game and it may also be a stepping stone to the future. Okay, I hope you liked this analysis and this whole video. This is everything from me for now. Thank you for your attention. Feel free to write me anything in the comments below. And well, perhaps see you in some next video. Goodbye.